What if you go up to people and start asking them, what's the source of your consciousness? What's the source of your awareness, of your intelligence? And yes, I'll be using all these three words as synonyms for this video. But what kind of answers would you expect to hear? Because there are several answers which you might hear, many of which could actually be true or right, depending on who you're telling them to. But ultimately, it's very important to understand your awareness, to know the source of your consciousness, because that tells you how you are creating your current reality, or that teaches you how to start consciously creating your reality. If you understand the source of your consciousness, you're able to apply everything consciously. You're able to create your reality consciously. But for example, a modern scientist would tell you that the source of consciousness is obviously none other than the brain. And that's a very valid argument. That's a very good point. The frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for your logical thinking, for making logical decisions, for taking logical actions. It's responsible for it enables you to make informed decisions, apply your intellect, and ultimately do the right thing, And a modern scientist would tell you that the only way to consciously create your reality is to master your brain. The stronger your grip over the brain, the better you are at creating your reality. So mastering the brain and understanding how it functions, the more informed you are about the brain, the more you're going to be able to, consciously discipline your brain and consciously create a reality with your efforts, with your intellect, with your logic, and other parts of the brain, like the primitive brain, the limbic system, the reptilian brain, right? It's responsible for your animal instinct, your instincts. Don't go for this, avoid that, go for that, yes, adopt this, do this, don't do this, and other parts for your emotions, like the amygdala, for your fear, and all combined just guides you to creating the reality you want. And if you understand that, well, you will be able to create your reality consciously and intentionally. Now, this is a very good argument, like I said, but there's just one thing about the brain being your source of consciousness that does not sit well with me. And that is, your brain oftentimes works against you. So, for example, in medical conditions where you develop autoimmune disease and your immunity system starts working against you, the brain signals your immunity system to start eating yourself up or something. And even further, it works against you in decision making, as in, whenever you're about to commit a change in your life, whenever you're opting for a step or an action that would lead to your life changing fundamentally, or in some core ways, you'll find that the brain is trying its best to stop you from taking that action. It will bring out all of your fears, it will bring out all of your obstacles, it will remind you why you're not able to do that, it will tell you you're not worth it, that you don't deserve it, that you're not capable of doing such things, and it will confirm you, it will lead you to procrastinate, and then convince you to stop taking that action, to quit doing that thing. It might be, just traveling, changing cities or changing countries, or going for a change in your career, shifting your career, or committing to something new, or letting go of an old lifestyle or whatever. You will find that the brain oftentimes works against you because it's not aware of anything beyond the survival of the ego, beyond this 3D body. And while going into that thing at the moment might not feel good from a survival point of view based on your programming due to previous experiences and feedback from the past and memories from the past, and it's convinced that it cannot go for that thing is bad for the ego, and as such it will not allow you to do that thing. But you as a higher awareness, you as someone who's observing all of that happening, and the more informed you are about this, the more you know that this is how the brain is working, the more you're going to be aware of this awareness. And when you're aware of that awareness, of that higher awareness, and you look at the brain and you see it doing this and wanting you to go for that, wanting you to relapse to your old lifestyle, wanting you to whatever, and you go, you know what, I'll commit to this uncomfortable thing, and I'll overcome the brain's logic, the brain's reasoning, and I do something else. And you go for something that the brain did not lead you to, that your brain, because the brain is just chemicals, it's a mechanical setup, and it works in very predictable ways, but it does not know about the long term. It does not have the awareness, this consciousness that you're thinking about. Well, you're able to imagine yourself in the future, and you're thinking, well, yeah, I'll be, if I do those things now, that could happen, and that's a better chance and that thing happening, and I'm shifting my reality. Your brain does not care about that. It just cares about your previous programming, and if it feels good or not, and what feedback you've taken from your past experiences, and that informs your future, your future guidance from your brain. So that's not your consciousness. That simply cannot be the source of your consciousness, the brain, because the brain works against you, and you from higher awareness still are able to do something else, to do it differently. Another perspective would be that of a behaviorist or a philosopher, who would tell you that the source of consciousness is actually, learned. It's something that you developed over the years, as in you are born as a kitty, as a kitten, as a baby cat, with no understanding, with no consciousness, with no awareness, and this awareness had been taught to you. Everything you're nurtured, the way you were nurtured, the way you were raised, the way you were taught, the way you were programmed, that ultimately developed your moral system, your ethical system, your disciplinary system, your good and evil system, and formulated your consciousness, your awareness, and that guides you. And the better you are at, the better your nurture were, the better you were raised up, the more you were informed as you were raised up, the stronger your consciousness is going to be. And then you can go and reprogram some of those aspects, and with that you are going to access higher awareness or higher consciousness, or you will apply better intelligence. And that is a fair reasoning, but that would also assume that if a baby is born in the forest or in the middle of nowhere and abandoned, somehow made it through, survived through the initial years of its life, it will grow up to be unconscious, because no one taught it, no one gave it a moral spectrum, no one. But that is actually not true, and I believe there were several experiments back in Soviet Union era, which tested that thing. I don't think it's very ethical to even, it does not feel, ethical to even speak about it, but I believe it happened. I believe that there were such experiments done under lab conditions, not in the forest, obviously. But yes, and it turned out to be that consciousness would still be there, that you would have awareness and you would have intelligence, and you wouldn't just be with your animal instinct. Another aspect, another outlook on this would be that of a biologist or a medical professional, and they would tell you that probably that your consciousness, the source of your consciousness, is actually your genes. And that is truly a very good argument. That's a good one. meaning your genes, as in all of the genes that's been passed to you from all of your ancestors. It's been coded. The genes, our genes, have been evolving and getting coded and getting programmed, and it's moving on and moving on. And since whatever first sparked that initial consciousness, or whatever developed it, or how it was developed, regardless, it just kept getting passed on, and it was created through the amount of data, through the amount of knowledge downloaded in the genes and absorbed by your ancestors and absorbed by people, and it was all shared. And we at some point reached to developing consciousness and awareness of being aware and intelligence, regardless of our input and output. Regardless of our input, we are able to intelligently maneuver our way through decisions. And that is how you create your reality. They would tell you that understanding those genes and understanding your ancestors and understanding that would better help you to create the reality you want. It would tell you what the obstacles are, where you've been stuck, what your ancestors have dealt with, which point in consciousness your ancestors were not able to overcome, to exceed, to ascend, and that gives you input to actually work with your reality. And the better your grip on that, the better you are yet again at creating your reality consciously. Something about that, however, with modern epigenetics, we now know that your genetics are modifiable. It's you could, for example, live your way to a cancer gene, or to the eradication of a cancer gene. You could, by your mind, through the power of your mind, through this higher awareness, through your awareness, which is supposedly coming from your gene, but through it, you could actually completely change your genes. You could develop the gene for boldness. You could eradicate the gene for boldness. You could develop color genes for if you want some aspects with different colors, your hair color, your eye color. You can develop different bodily genes that it has to do with your physique, so on and so forth. And that has been proven. Just like your body can affect the brain, the mind, your mind can affect the body. So simply by living through a reality, whatever that might look, there was an experiment where the finger strength, just by imagining, over the period of 2 weeks of exercising your finger, the strength for the finger increased by 25% compared to the ones who were actually doing the exercise, which increased by 30%. And that's just 25% using just your mind, using just your imagination. Similarly with the bicep curl I mentioned often, the bicep strength were also increased as well, as good as the ones who were actually doing the physical bicep curl, exercising that biceps. And that tells you that you could eradicate the gene of consciousness. And I don't think that simply, that consciousness is something as fragile as a gene. That consciousness is not something that you can, choose to have or not to have. It's there, it's your source, it's part of your life force. So it's there in something deeper. So just like you could, enhance your mood and improve your mind and improve your attention and improve your focus by focusing on your body, by doing physical work, by, working out, by taking back control over your body and exerting, effort, and that releases adrenaline, and then it releases oxytocin or serotonin or dopamine, and that, just using your body could enhance your mind. Using your mind right could also enhance the body. And you could get healthy, you could eradicate chronic diseases, you could do many things, and you could also develop them. Autoimmune disease, like I mentioned earlier, the more you hate yourself, the more you work against yourself, the more your actions and thoughts and beliefs and approaches are a representation of you working against yourself, self-sabotaging, hating yourself, doing things that don't go well with you, with your truth, that would actually develop to cause autoimmune diseases. And so all of these examples are not really that convincing after all. But that gives us a very good understanding of what consciousness or awareness really is. That tells us the first thing, first and foremost, that awareness is infinite. And it's not because all of those aforementioned sources of consciousness are wrong that makes awareness, that makes consciousness an infinite concept, but it's because consciousness is infinite, so that's a given. And I'll get to that in just a moment as to why it is infinite, or how, and how can you use it, what to do with it, what can you do with that infinite awareness, and how does it work. But it's because that awareness is already infinite, whether we like it or not, that makes all of those aforementioned perspectives really not very true. And I remember something that stuck with me years after I've listened to a lecture by Alan Watts. In one of his lectures, that I listened to a very long time ago, and this was the only part that stuck with me. He said, he was speaking about, something about this nature, something around this topic. And he said that if that's how we perceive awareness, if that's how we perceive consciousness, there's always going to be a higher level of awareness. So going back to the example of the brain being the source of your consciousness, if that's how you're thinking about awareness, and now your brain is, that your brain, you're observing it from a higher perspective, and that it's leading you to something that's not good for you on the long term, just because it's good for now, and it's gonna probably delay you, hurt you on the long term, and you're overlooking it, and and you're thinking, wow, I can change that, I don't have to abide by what the brain is trying to convince me to do or think or believe, and I can change that. So that must be the true me, that must be my true awareness, that must be who I really am, and that's the awareness I'm gonna use. And you apply it for some time, and you realize that perhaps it's judgmental, it's telling you that's good, that's bad, and don't do those things, and discipline yourself, and because then again, it was not really that awareness, it was not really your highest awareness, it was just the input of the collective you've been feeding yourself, if that makes sense. But it will make sense in the end regardless. And so you go like, okay, this is bad, this is good, I don't like how judgmental it is, I don't like how critical it is, I don't like how it's making me think or approach life in this manner, and I can feel that I'm looking at it from above, that there's yet a higher awareness, and I can feel myself in this awareness with nothing mattering, with me feeling good regardless about everything, with me being more open, with me being more receiving, with me being more lenient. And so I don't want to identify with this awareness. And so this higher awareness, which is looking at this previously higher awareness, but which turned out to be judgmental, and it's perceiving it, and I'm perceiving it from this higher realization, higher awareness, and I'm thinking, well, I don't have to abide with it, I don't have to be judgmental, and I can find a bit in myself, a part in myself, which does not identify with this. So this must be the new me, the true me, this new perspective, this new awareness must be who I really am. And then you live a bit with it, and you will just keep stacking awarenesses above and top of awareness, and on top of awareness, and on top of consciousness, and on top of intelligence. And every time you could say, this is who I really am, this is the true me, this is my true awareness. and neglect the previous one. You see where this is going, and you could probably start seeing why awareness is actually infinite. Now, I don't really remember what Alan Watts concluded in his lecture, what is the source of consciousness, or which awareness is the real awareness, or which perspective is the true you. But nonetheless, that informs us, that gives you the perspective of how infinite your awareness is. You wanna know something? I just gave you time to let this understanding that your awareness is infinite to settle in, because I'm not just uttering out gibberish. I'm not just saying, I'm not meaning to make it sound, magical and infinite and inspiring, but this is as real as it gets. And so I wanted it to settle in and for you to really think about it before we move on with the concept that your awareness is infinite. And as such, I invite you with an open mind for this, because that would really inform you about how you are creating your current reality and how to even better start creating your desired reality. Now, the first reason your awareness is infinite, your consciousness is actually infinite, is because you can never get the hang of it. There's always gonna be a higher layer of awareness. You do not reach to a point in which you cannot look at yourself from above and go like, well, I don't have to identify with this, and as such, I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna feel in a different way. I'm gonna be someone else. But the most important reason, as I see it, for your awareness being infinite, for your source of consciousness being the infinite, and this will not make sense at first, but it is because that you cannot be what you're not aware of, that your life cannot become something that you're not, that you cannot be better than who you are. And this is the very strongest reason as to why your consciousness is actually infinite. And I know it does not make any sense saying it like this, but it will make lots of sense in just a moment, and that will inform you further on everything, on how your reality is being created. But putting that aside for now, I just want to give you something to try out for yourself before we move on. And that is being aware of your awareness. Because it's so easy, and it's something that you've done 100 times before, 1,000,000 times before, and we tend to disregard it, we tend to neglect it and brush it off as something regular, normal, without sucking it, without absorbing, without realizing the magnitude, the sheer importance of that happening and its revelation to us and what it's been revealing to us. And that is, regardless of how bad you're feeling, I don't know how you're feeling right now, but I've tried it through the worst of the worst, and it works. But regardless, even if I'm depressed, even if you're depressed, regardless of what you're dealing with right now, regardless of the magnitude of your problems and the intensity of your issues and the problems and the complications in your life, or the intensity of your desires and your lack of fulfillment, whatever it is that you're feeling, whatever it is that's really bothering you, whatever it is that's terrorizing your existence and flipping you off your feet, it could all disappear through a simple breath. But it's not about the breath. I want you to try it out for now, regardless of whatever it is and however it's making you feel. If you simply take a breath and divert your attention from that whatever is happening to your breath, imagine it, see it moving up your nostrils, into your mind, into your head, and down, going down and filling each and every part of your body, every atom, replenishing every cell in your body. Regardless, go wild with your imagination, and it's filling your stomach, it's filling your chest, and it's filling, and even see it seeping through the rest of your body. And just, see it leaving your body with all the negative energy, you don't have to see it with all the negative energy. Just focus on that inhalation and exhalation, and go for a second. Look at whatever you're dealing with from above, and you will become aware of your awareness. You will realize that this is not really me. You'll realize that this is sad. You're dealing with a lot. There's a lot on your plate, and it's making you get all frustrated, get all resentful, get all mad and angry. But it's not necessarily you. You don't necessarily have to identify with it, and you, in a simple moment, can choose to dissociate from that perspective, and you will access a higher awareness, and you will become aware of your awareness. And the beautiful thing about this is that the more you practice this, the more you master this, the more you are aware of your awareness, the more detached you are from everything that's happening in your external reality. And that will give you truly what you want in your external reality, as we're gonna discuss in just a moment. But apply that all the time, and see how much it works for you, and see how much magic it works out for you. And being aware of your awareness will give you that stillness. It will make you present at all times. You don't have to identify to this. Whatever is going on, you can always come back to your breath and really let it seep in, and become aware of that higher awareness, and everything else could feel unbothering, meaningless. And so, in a moment of absolute turmoil, you could access an awareness that's an absolute bliss, and you can see it, and you can look at yourself from that awareness and think like, why am I suffering that much? And that would still be you. But it's not who you truly are. That just because that awareness, it's not your awareness, that's not your consciousness. It's working this way because it's infinite, because it can take whatever form you choose to identify with. It becomes, your awareness becomes whatever you want it to become. It takes the form you give it. And so when something is happening with you that's feeling that bad, and you're identified with it so hard, and you go like, well, I'm aware that it's happening to me, but not something that I need to identify with. It's happening to one aspect of my awareness. It's happening to one level of my consciousness, to this 3D. And while it's bad, at many times, it's very hard to brush it off, because, our ego keeps us stuck, our survival needs. The more intense, there are things that are harder to brush off and, see it from a higher awareness than other things. But ultimately, it could work with everything. But, as well, the social pressure you have, social statutes, and your family, perhaps, your environment, your needs, your need to meet ends, your survival, your hierarchy, your sociality, could all force you to be very absorbed by your 3D ego awareness, your brain consciousness. But it does not make it the truth. Just because we choose to box our consciousness and put it in a box and limit it, and think about it from a narrow perspective, and identify with one of the lowest levels of our awareness, does not necessarily make it our truth. It's simply something we could be bound by. It's simply something that we might need to struggle a little bit with, but it's not who we truly are. It's not your awareness. It's not your consciousness. It's just the image you're being forced and programmed to give your awareness. Now, once you understand this and what that indicates, what that signifies, you would move on to being whoever you want. You could embody whatever you want. You could take off whatever image you like, and it will manifest in your reality. But what I mean to say is, just like you can strengthen your finger with your mind, just like you can empower yourself through a cancer gene, just like you can completely transform your life, your body, your health with your mind, you could impose whatever on your awareness, and it will simply give you that image. And that's what everyone has been doing. That's how life has been working. That's how reality has been created. And we've seen examples of this over and over and over. People becoming what they truly believe after they truly believe then. People becoming their pursuits only when they really incorporate it and embody it 100%, or to a great extent. Like I tried. I went out of my way, and I was doing things that I'm not comfortable with, and I prayed for things to happen. I cried for things to happen. I was wishing over and over, and I'm praying and I'm crying for things to, either problems to dissolve or things to manifest. And I was going out of my way. I was doing things, I was working, I was putting in the effort as an ego, as a brain consciousness. And nothing would happen because I was not embodying that truth. I was only aware of me being in this lack, living with that problem. That was my only awareness. And I was struggling to work against it, to go against it, to reject it, to resist it. And meanwhile, I was also praying and hoping and crying for things to change, to go in a different way. But that never happened, simply because I never became the awareness that I wanted at that point, or at those examples I'm revisiting. So whenever I did not embody the truth I'm seeking, the reality I'm seeking, it would never happen, regardless of what effort I put in. People take the long route of putting in so much effort and struggling and disciplining and crying your way through it and struggling and shedding tears through your journey until you eventually align with that awareness, until you're eventually thinking like you're detached from your external environment due to your efforts, due to the confidence you gain from your efforts, due to the increased self-worth, and you're detached and you realize that you only care about the intentions of your actions. So as long as the intentions of your actions are pure, are aligned with what you want, you're gonna feel good. And once you actually reach to that point is when everything starts to fall in place, is when a ripple effect, a domino effect kickstarts and is perpetuated, and you see your life unfolds the way you actually have been trying to create it for a long while. But the thing is, it's all about awareness. Once you become aware of what you want and you live through that awareness, you live through the awareness of the version you actually want to be in this reality, it happens for you. Now back to the most important reason why your reality, your awareness, your consciousness is infinite. And that is that you cannot be better than what you are. What I mean by that is that through my crying, through my wishing for things to go one way, I would make some sort of self-promises that, I know I might be struggling with things, and I know I might be, not very committed, not very devoted to what I want, but I promise I'll be the best version, the most suitable version for that thing after it happens. So I'll be I'll be the most aligned version with that reality once that reality manifests. But that never happened, because that's not how life works. Simply for the reason that you won't know, that you will not know what's the best aligned version of you with that reality. You simply don't know. You say that I'm gonna be this, I'm gonna react like that, I'm gonna have this attitude once the reality I want manifests. But how do you know what's the right attitude after it's happened? Because you already got it. That means you were already aligned. That means, well, what does it mean? Depends on how you look at it, depends on what you believe in. But it means that you are already there. So why would you need to change some aspects for you to maintain it? If you have gained something, if you have manifested something, reflected something through your higher awareness and printed it on this, manifested it, projected it into this reality, then why, while being a specific version, why then would you have to change that version to maintain that which you got, which you received? You already received it. Now, if you believe that's an act of grace, that's something going out of its way up there and making it happen for you, because now that's up to you to believe. But what's actually happening is that it will never happen unless you do those changes. You become the embodiment of the change you want beforehand, because only then would you know what really works, what really is aligned with that reality, which version is aligned with that reality. Yes, it's when I became like that, it's when I started believing in this, it's when I started feeling that way, it's when I started thinking those thoughts, it's when I started taking those actions, then that reality manifested. But it's all about the emotions, it's all about how you're feeling internally, regardless of everything external. And if you are observing your internal self all the time, you will know what led you there. You will know when you believed in what, when you felt what to your core, things happened in what way. So you will understand truly what leads to what. And that's why your awareness can only be infinite. Because whatever you give it, it will reflect back at you only when you give it. It cannot be a game of praying that, just give me that thing and then I will become it. Because it does not have that sentiment. It does not, it's pure conscious energy. It does not function that way. That's not reality. That's just, part of the duality we've maintained here. And that's also the reason why we're trying to put our consciousness in a box, in a 3D box that makes it understandable, that makes it affable, that makes it, receivable for us. But that's not what it truly is. And that is how your awareness is infinite. You give it a form, you become something, and you immediately, or after some time, once it truly is your part of your maintained awareness, it imprints on your external reality. It's never the other way around. And that tells you that whatever form you give your awareness, the more you are aware of your higher awareness, the more it's gonna be a reflection of that. And that could take anything. That could take up your entire imagination, and you could reflect it on your awareness, live through whatever awareness. But always remember to be aware of your awareness, because that helps you detach, and that gives you the edge over whatever your ego is dealing with, over whatever your brain is suffering with, struggling with, over whatever you're truly occupied and engulfed by. This being aware of your awareness, and always realizing that, well, I can choose to not identify with this. Well, if you make it a habit, that becomes you. You become the embodiment of your higher awareness, and you only identify with the things you want. You're only living intentionally. You're applying intention to your consciousness, and that makes the entire process of your reality creation an intentional process. And that means you get what you intentionally ask for. You get what you truly want. And so take a breath. Become aware of it, become aware of your mind, become aware of your body, and realize that there is this level of awareness that you choose to look at things with, and it makes you dissociate from those things. It makes you detach from whatever is happening, and that feels good, and that feels blissful, and that awakens gratitude, and that keeps you connected and still and present, and that creates your desired reality. Thank you for staying this long with me today, you lovely infinite beings. This is AF's Conscious Frequency. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if it was helpful, to help this video actually reach many more others who might actually need it.